Welcome back, everybody, to the Week 8 edition of the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm Sean Kennedy, joined alongside our NFL handicapper, Dan Erta. Dan, how are you feeling this week?
Not much of a handicapper nowadays, am I?
You might say when it comes to betting, you're a little bit handicapped.
Yeah, it's funny. A friend who listens to this podcast told me that last week I sounded very bitter. So I'm going to try to not sound as bitter this week.
A little more upbeat.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, but I do have some things I'm bitter about, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, aren't you a proponent of the secret, the philosophy to visualize good things happening?
Yeah, I haven't been doing that.
Maybe that's the problem. So, it's for those who aren't keeping track at home, you did have a losing week again last week. You went 2-3, bringing your season total up to, 11 and 17.
Yeah, that's not good for those keeping track at home.
Yeah, for those non-mathematicians out there, 11 and 17, not a good record. But
it's also still manageable.
Yeah.
It's still manageable to come back in 8-9 more weeks.
Yeah, definitely. It's not even through the halfway point of the season yet. So we'll just quickly recap your Week 7 plays. You did go 2-3. We'll start with one of your losses. You had Cleveland -6. They actually were hardly in that game. They didn't look anything like the team we'd seen in the weeks prior. They lost 24-6 to Jacksonville. What's one thing you took away from that game?
One thing I took away from that game is you can't just auto-fade a team. You have to look at the situation. It definitely, Cleveland was riding high. It was definitely their letdown spot, and I didn't pay attention to that because I was just so stuck in the whole Jacksonville's so terrible they can't stay within a touchdown in any game. So it was more of a bet against Jacksonville. But you have to remember, if you're going to fade a team, you can do that, but the team they're playing has to be competent. And not necessarily that Cleveland's not competent, but they have to also not be in a terrible spot like that, too.
For me, it was just kind of don't consider teams that are on a hot streak to have arrived, so to speak. Like everybody was saying, Cleveland against Jacksonville, Cleveland had all the public momentum.
Yeah, I said that last week. I thought they were legit.
Yeah, and I just don't. I think we proved that we hadn't seen enough from them to be like, oh, Cleveland's a team that can take care of bad teams. Like, that's not who they are yet. They still don't have a very good defense this year, and that Alex Mack injury, I think, hurt them a little more than people might have thought.
They're still a team that could beat any team in the league and could lose to any team in the league.
Right. We just need to go back to thinking of them as a feisty team that can give people problems rather than...
And look for them in underdog spots more than when they're heavy favorites like that.
Right. All right, so one of your wins last week, you had Indianapolis -3.5. They covered pretty handily, actually shutting out the Bengals 27-0. Anything from that game that caught your eye?
Yeah, if you're going to keep on giving me 3-point spreads on the Colts, I'm going to keep on betting them. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's obvious foreshadowing for Week 8.
The Colts are awesome.
The Colts have been playing excellent, and if the defense can even be average, they were excellent in Week 7, obviously shutting out the Bengals. But even if they could be average, that offense is going to win them more games than not. So another loss last week. You had San Diego -4. That was kind of a close back and forth game. KC actually won that one outright, 23-20. Anything you learned from that one, Dan?
Just both of those teams actually, Kansas City and San Diego, are both kind of Jekyll and Hyde teams. They're both teams that when they're having a good game, you could be like, wow, this team could make a run for the division or for the conference. And when they're looking bad, you're like, they're frauds. So I think I picked there was too much gamble in that pick.
Not enough certainty. Maybe Andy Reid off the bye.
Andy Reid,
has a little magic in that old hat.
And Cleveland might be good. Cleveland might not be the regression team that everyone thought
KC.
they were going to. That's what I meant. Yeah, KC.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we'll look. They got Charles back. The defense has been playing pretty solid throughout the year. So
I have to wipe that Week 1 loss to Tennessee out of my head for both teams.
Right.
Because I've been overvaluing Tennessee all year from that one win, and I've been undervaluing Kansas City just from that one game.
Yep. So I think in Week 8 now, whatever happened in Week 1 should be pretty much wiped out of your memory.
Yeah.
That's especially being that it was Week 1.
And
teams haven't really found their rhythm yet after coming out of preseason and everything. All right, so your other win last week, you had Denver -6.5. And as with your first one with Indy, this was another easy cover for you as Denver lambasted the 49ers 42-17. Anything you could take away from that one?
I wish I made it a 5-unit play. I just loved that line from the moment it came out. San Francisco, not a good team. Now they might get better. They have a lot of guys who are hurt on defense who are coming back, and if that happens and the whole Harbaugh situation passes over, they could get into a groove. But right now, I have not been impressed by them, and I'm happy that I got to take advantage of that at least for 1 week.
For me, if Peyton Manning has a chance to set the all-time touchdown record, you should probably back him.
You got to remember that next time
the next time that comes up, we should definitely keep an eye out on the line for that one.
Or like Peyton Manning in a primetime game too.
Yeah.
And not a Thursday nights. I don't really count, but a Monday or Sunday night game, like you don't really want to be against Peyton Manning.
No, you'll definitely lose money in the long run betting against that guy. And finally, your fifth and final play from Week 7, your third loss. Looked good for majority of the first half. You had Houston plus 3.5. They ended up losing to Pittsburgh 30-23. So Dan, I think other than a 3-minute stretch, you pretty much called this one right.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to sound bitter because I've been having all kinds of games like this season, and this sucks because Houston was the better team for about
57 minutes.
Yeah, about 57 minutes of this game. Even the way it was, they still got an onside kickback and had a chance to tie it in the fourth quarter. But this is the second straight week that a Monday night game, I picked a team that I really still think had a good chance of winning, and because of one 2 to 3 minute turnaround in the game, that cost me everything. It happened with the Rams, with the whole Jared Cook offensive pass interference, followed by 80-yard touchdown pass to Brandon Lloyd. And then it happened with this. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in an NFL game. They scored 24 points in, 2 minutes or something?
2 minutes, 47 seconds, something like that. Yeah.
That does not sound like it's possible to do.
Yeah.
You can argue, well, that's why you don't bet on Ryan Fitzpatrick. But
sound advice.
Or especially Ryan Fitzpatrick on the road.
Yeah.
But still, like you can't expect things like that to happen. I still like the play, and I'd still make it again.
All right, so 2 and 3 week, bringing you to 11-17 on the season. We'll go over Week 8 lines a little later, but right now it's time for Stump the Sharp.
All right.
Now time for Stump the Sharp.
Riley Cooper.
Not right.
Darren Sproles.
Dan, your first question for this week. What team, according to Football Outsiders, currently has the best odds to make the playoffs?
Team has the best odds to make the playoffs.
And while you're thinking about that one, I will note for the listeners out there that if you look on Friday, they might change it based on what happens with the Thursday night game.
So it could be Denver.
Obviously, Denver and San Diego, that would have big playoff implications down the road depending on what happens. Right now, the game's scoreless as we're recording it in the first quarter, so that could change as of Friday. But right now, best odds to make the playoffs. Dan, do you have a guess?
I have a guess. My guess is going to be Indianapolis Colts.
That is correct.
Because you got to figure they have a good record and nobody really challenging them for the division at all.
Right. They sit at 5-2 right now. Houston's the second place team in that division. They're 3-4. Plus, the Colts have the win in the head-to-head matchup that they've played so far, and that one was in Houston. So their second matchup with Houston is going to be at home for the Colts. So you figure that's pretty certain victory for them. So 2 games in hand and already up 2 in the win column. They look like a sure thing to win their division as any team in the league right now, despite some better teams maybe existing as far as who's the best team in the NFL. They definitely have the surest path to the playoffs.
I don't know, but the thing is, the Zach Mettenberger era is beginning this weekend, so
true.
Tennessee's poised to make their run.
The Titans are lurking in third place, so you never know.
Colts are in the playoffs. That's awesome for them.
Yep. So, all right, you got that one. Your second question this week, second and final question, we only have 2 for you. So, who is the leader on a per-play basis in rushing DYAR, which is like yards above replacement. So who's been the most effective runner this season on a per play basis?
The per play basis, the most effective runner.
And it's not somebody that has like 5 carries. it's a guy who's seen enough carries to qualify.
Getting this question right means nothing in terms of being a sharp gambler. Just get that on the record.
No, it's about knowledge of the NFL landscape.
Of the NFL landscape.
It's just I will give you a little hint. This is definitely a boy of yours, like one of your little pet favorites.
One of my pet favorites.
Yeah.
So it's not Toby Gerhart.
It's not Toby Gerhart. He might qualify as the least effective runner on a per play basis, as a lot of guys outside of Bernard Robinson's Week 7 performance, based on how bad that Jacksonville offensive line has been.
This person's not injured or anything, right?
No.
Okay.
No, currently healthy. Currently expected to play in Week 8.
I'm gonna go with Andre Ellington.
It's not Andre Ellington. He is not in the top 5. He's done a lot more damage as a receiver than he has running the ball. You want to get one more guess?
I do want to take one more guess.
All right. Fire away.
Is it a guy who's been the starter on this team the whole season?
It's not.
Jarek McKinnon.
It is Jarek McKinnon. Correct. So Jarek McKinnon has been the most effective runner in the NFL this season, which I guess had to factor into why they eventually gave him the starting gig with Peterson out, and then they were rolling with Asiata for a few weeks, but he was more of a plotting back.
He's a plotter.
Yeah, he had that 3 touchdown game, and everyone assumed like, oh, he must be pretty good, but dialing in from the 2-yard line doesn't often take too much from the running back's perspective.
Yeah, what you said, Jarek McKinnon is my boy. I think he's going to be fantastic, not just this year. I think he's a star going forward. He was actually an option quarterback in college, so he's still learning the running back position. He's a dude. And the good news, I don't think he beats his kids either, so I think he's going to stay on the field for a long time.
No, he's a family-friendly guy as far as we know, as are we here at the Philly Fast Break podcast, also family-friendly podcast.
We are.
So, that was one of the concerns with why he wasn't getting much playing time at the beginning of the season. There was concerns about pass protection and everything that goes into the running back position beyond just being a pure runner. So as he's picked up more and more of the offense and kind of those nuanced things about the position, he's been getting more time, and now he's got the lion's share of the carries for them. And
yes,
has been doing a really good job as the numbers would indicate. All right, so really good week by Stump the Sharp.
All right.
Yeah, turning that around at least. So all right, we're going to move on to our outlet pass segment now. We got 2 questions from our readers this week, so thanks for getting those in. The first one is a little fantasy question, which maybe you could help out with. It's from Joe Ammo at Joe Ammo 368. He's got a little running back quandary. His running backs aren't too good. He's starting Chris Johnson as his number 2 in a full PPR league. So here is available waiver wire guys, and you can let him know if he should pick up and start any of these guys over Chris Johnson.
Okay.
We have the aforementioned Matt Asiata.
Okay.
Benny Cunningham. Stephen Taylor, Stepfan Taylor, James Starks, Devontae Freeman, or Bernard Pierce.
Now, of those 2 guys, I think Stephen Taylor and who's the one after Stephen Taylor? You said
I said James Starks.
And James Starks. I think those 2 are the 2 guys who are best of that list because they're an injury away from being a top 12 running back in the NFL.
But what about week 8? He needs to start.
If you're talking about for this week alone, definitely not Asiata.
I agree.
Go through them again. Asiata,
no. Benny Cunningham,
no Benny
Taylor, Starks, Devontae Freeman, Bernard Pierce.
Gotta go Starks.
Starks.
Even with a healthy Eddie Lacy, Starks has been getting about 45% of the carries. It's more of like maybe like a 60-40 split than anything else.
To the chagrin of all Eddie Lacy owners out there who's spent a lot of money in auction drafts or took him in the first round this year.
Although he's scoring touchdowns again finally, so that's good.
That is good for them, yeah.
But not only is James Starks Eddie Lacy injury away from being a very, very good fantasy running back, even as it is, he's still getting a lot of carries on a high-powered offense. He got a touchdown last week, and when you're as desperate as he sounds right now, that's what you got to look for. Of those groups, who's most likely to score a touchdown? And I feel like You could argue maybe Bernard Pierce, but he's still fighting with a bunch of other people for carries. I think James Starks is the best of that group.
So Starks over Chris Johnson.
Starks over Chris Johnson. Now the Jets are home, but yeah, Chris Ivory has just really put a chokehold on that spot there. Chris Johnson's next to worthless. I like James Starks over Chris Johnson.
Okay. For me, I go Benny Cunningham, full PPR. Cunningham got the start against Seattle. He only had 2 carries. They're kind of in that 3-headed timeshare. But Cunningham plays all the passing downs for them. Trey Mason, they don't trust him at all in the passing game. Zach Stacy was completely phased out. They're talking about, we don't know, we're going with the hot hand or whatever. But for me, Cunningham, as a floor, you're going to get a few receptions. He's in there for every passing down. And then he's had a few rushing touchdowns this year, too. He had one against the Eagles. So he works his way in the running game too.
He returns kicks too. He could always get you a touchdown that way.
Could pop you a return touchdown. You never know. But for me, you got a pretty safe floor with 3-4 receptions, 40, 50 total yards. He's going to get you 8-9 points, and that's not even factoring in the possibility of a touchdown.
You just have to be worried about the fact of the Rams' offense in general being completely shut down on the road in Arrowhead. And like you said, I guess even if they do, Cunningham will get his
they'll be behind. They'll have to pass to get back into the game, and he'll be on the field more in that case.
But in a game where the over-under is 56, which is the Saints-Packers game, that's implying both teams are going to score a lot, which they should. I like James Starks' chances of getting one of those scores, but I think Benny Cunningham absolutely is going to get you 4 or 5 points no matter what.
All right, so thanks for the question, Joe. Our other question from Kirill Platnik, KMAX732. He wants to know, we got a little NBA question. NBA does tip off Tuesday night, just a few days away. So with the lottery reform vote not getting the necessary votes this week, they were going to go to a more spread out split as far as who would get the number 1, 2, 3, and so on picks. He wants to know what our thoughts are on that, and if we have any thoughts on the wheel proposal that the NBA had out there.
Well, NBA is definitely your thing before it's mine. So why don't you go ahead, and then I'll add my half-baked ideas afterwards.
Yeah, so as far as the wheel proposal goes, for anybody not too familiar with it out there, basically the NBA is going to assign a 30-year period in which each team gets the first pick 1 year, and then 6 years down the road they get the second pick, and it's spread out evenly so that they have the first through the 30th pick every year at some point over that 30-year period. And you don't go 6 years without having a top 5 pick at some point. And it's spread out evenly like that. And the problem I have with that is that the college players, they get to pretty much decide where they want to go. So they'll stay in college an extra year if they know that the following year, Miami, they want to go to Miami, be on South Beach. Maybe Miami at this point is good again. I don't think they're going to be that good this year, but they can pick to go to a good team that will have the number 1 pick just because it's year 22 in this 30-year wheel proposal, and they'll have the number 1 pick. So they'll stay in college a year, or they could leave college, go play overseas for a year, make a few million, and then come back and then go to the NBA and enter the draft that year. So I don't like that teams could avoid getting any good players because the players could kind of shift to where they want to go. For me, I just say get rid of the draft altogether.
Everyone's a free agent?
Everyone's a free agent. You have a hard cap. None of this, you're in the soft luxury tax if you go over the cap, and then there's a more punitive luxury tax on top of that. Because teams are still paying that. Brooklyn paid $40, $50 million over the salary cap last year. If they want to, they can. Just put a hard cap, make it like an auction draft in fantasy leagues, and if they want to get LeBron, they want to spend 80% of their salary cap to get LeBron, they can. If a few players want to take pay cuts like the Heat did recently, with LeBron taking half of what he was worth and Wade and Bosh both taking pay cuts so they could be all on the same team, that's fine too. That's the player's prerogative. And then college guys, in the current system, they pretty much have no choice in where they go. Imagine coming out of college and you have job offers from this great firm out in California, a great firm out in Florida, whatever. But then you say, no, if you want to work in this industry, we're going to stick you in Minneapolis. And you got to live there for at least 4 years. So that doesn't seem fair. I like the idea of people getting to go to either where they want to go or a team that would be willing to offer them the most money with this hard salary cap system.
You just made a point that is fantastic. People don't think about it because people are just, it's entrenched in people's minds that sports work that way with drafts.
Right.
But that's these people, you're right, that's their employment. And they're told they have to work at one place. They can't go explore their options. No other job has that. And I've been a proponent of getting rid of drafts in general for a long time, in fairness to the players. Now, it's a lot less fun. Mel Kiper would be out of a job.
But it would be just like how exciting was the free agency season with LeBron was a free agent, Carmelo was a free agent. That nobody knew where Kevin Love demanded a trade. No one knew where he was going to end up, whether he was going to go to Golden State, join LeBron in Cleveland. Like that was all fun. So that would just be we would have that plus all the college guys too, and where they were all going to end up. I think it would be even more of a crazy fun time for fans than the draft system is.
And you'd have a hard cap, so it's not like one team could just buy everybody.
No, like you can't get all like. All right, Jabari Parker comes out of college. He actually kind of wanted to go to Milwaukee because he's from the Chicago area. It's close to Milwaukee. Like he was kind of happy with that. Maybe he would have wanted to go to the Jazz though because he's a devout Mormon, and maybe he would have wanted to play in Salt Lake City. Like it would open up a lot of things. Like with hometown guys, they could stay in their hometown and they could be a hometown hero. And maybe they grow up in the Philadelphia area and they say, "Oh, I'm definitely going to play for the Sixers because you know what? Under such a system, you could do that. You could say, I don't care if they offer me less money, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to go to the Sixers when I get out of college. Like that would be an option for people. Like I think it would offer a lot of new possibilities that people haven't really thought of, and I just think not only would it be more interesting for the league and fairer for the players coming out of college, but it would just create a more equitable economic system across the board.
But the only objection I have to that, and I don't even know if it's an objection, it's more of just a counterpoint, like if a team has a rough few years, and let's say they go like 3 straight years where they only win between 20 and 30 games, players aren't going to want to go to them. Players are gonna they're gonna have to overpay to get the same kind of guys that better teams wouldn't have to pay as much for, just because players would be like, yeah, you know what? I'm sure that New Orleans is a bad example because they're up and coming, and New Orleans is an awesome city. But let's say New Orleans sucked and it was a horrible place to live. People are like, I'm not going to go there. Even though they're offering me all this money, I'm going to go to Los Angeles, take less money, and then be in Los Angeles and have a good life and play with Kobe or whatever.
Right, but even under the current system, that still happens. Free agents don't go to small markets in cold weather cities. They go to LA or they go to Texas because there's no state income tax, or they go to Florida or they go to Miami so they can be near South Beach. And sure, you can always luck into a draft pick as a small market team. That's what happened with Oklahoma City, or what was Seattle getting Durant. So now he's in Oklahoma City. But you're not even assured that by being the worst team. Like the Sixers tanked. They didn't even end up being the worst team. Milwaukee was the worst team last year, and then they still only got the 3rd pick.
Yeah.
Like it's not a surefire thing. So I think eventually, under the system that I'm a proponent of, you're going to find somebody that's going to take whatever the most money is.
Yeah.
Because if you make enough money, you can live somewhere else in the off season. Let's face it.
And it's just an interesting topic because every solution you come up with, there's some valid pros and some valid cons with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no perfect system, but
I definitely don't like the wheel. I don't like the wheel that's like the way some people do.
Right? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either. But everything's really interesting to think about and discuss, and that's part of what makes sports so great is that there's just even beyond the games, which are amazing. There's all this other stuff to think about. So always great things out there to discuss, and thanks for the question. All right, so moving on from our Outlet Pass segment, we're going to move on to your Week 8 picks. So you have 2 full plays in the Week 8 docket, as well as working on your 3-team teaser. That is, you had 1 leg with Denver that won for you. You got 2 legs open. You're going to fill another one of those legs this week. So moving on to one of your 2 full plays for this week, you like the Seattle Seahawks -5 at at Carolina. Dan, what do you see here from Seattle that makes you want to back them?
I think, all right, so everyone knows Seattle's having some trouble right now.
They lost to the Rams, Dan. Did you see that?
I did see that. I saw the Rams pull out every single play in their playbook to preserve that win, or else they probably would not have. But fact remains, they gave up 28 points to Austin Davis, which last year, who would have ever thought Seattle's defense would be able to do that? Here's what's happening this week, though. Carolina is horrible. Carolina has a terrible defense. I think the Seattle offense is going to be able to get way back on track. And they have the perfect kind of offense that Seattle's going to be able to cover. Don't let Kelvin Benjamin catch the ball. And then they're going to be able to they don't even really have to focus on running back. Who are they running with now? Is it Jonathan Stewart now?
I think he is back this week.
I think
he looks probable.
He played last week, didn't he? I don't know. If he did, he didn't play enough for us to
didn't
notice.
Make an impact.
This team is bad. I mean, ever since our first podcast, when I took the under 8.5 wins for them for a very large amount of money, I just love going against this team because they're my favorite. They're a team that's bad, but still has somewhat of perception of not being bad. They have some players on defense. Luke Kuechly is absolutely unbelievable.
Not this season. He's not.
That's the thing, because you can't. Like, one man can't be a defense.
No man is an island.
Yeah.
Unless you're Reeves.
Carolina is really bad. Seattle, you know what? Last week, it was just 2 days after the Percy Harvin deal. Apparently, there was some inner turmoil about that. They've had a week to shake it off. And I think Pete Carroll's going to rally them and just be like, look, we're not leading the division right now. We're going to have to start winning games. We have to play like we played last year. The team's not all that different. Carolina was a playoff team last year, and then they lost half of their team. Seattle really has almost all the guys who got them where they got last year. And I think now's the time to buy low on them. I'm buying low on them this week and thinking that they can cover this and win by double digits.
I like some of those points you made. Carolina, 29th ranked defense as far as DVOA. They've really been awful this season. They miss Hardy to create the pass rush. Charles Johnson hasn't been as good as he was last season. And their secondary is just awful. They lost a couple guys they had that helped them out there last year, and they've just been getting shredded by any good passing offense. Most recently, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But Seattle, for all their troubles, they've had a good offense this season. They're sixth in the league. You saw Russell Wilson pass for 300 and run for 100 last week. So that hasn't been the problem, and it's just been the defense not being the formidable unit that they were in years past. But as you said, they can just stack the box against the run, and they have the size at the cornerback position to match up with Kelvin Benjamin, where he doesn't have good speed. He ran a 4.6 140 at the combine. So he's just been getting those jump balls because he's so big and he's really good at positioning.
And he's going to get 7 catches a game as long as Cam Newton throws him good balls because of his size.
Right, but against Seattle, they have the size at the cornerback position where that's kind of neutralized. So I think that'll really hurt Carolina in the passing game. And then if Seattle can just get the bodies up front to stop the run, and they're familiar enough with the read option going against San Fran twice this season, that they should have a good idea how to stop that when Cam Newton runs it. So I kind of like this play. I'm with you on this.
It's another road favorite, but they've been hitting this year.
Yeah. So Seattle -5, that's your first play. Your second full play of Week 8 is a team that you have been backing to good effect, Indianapolis. You like them -3. It's actually now up to -3.5. You got it -3 though, and they're on the road against the Steelers. So I think I know where you're going to go with this one, but why don't you talk this one out for the listeners?
The way to talk this one out, first off, it's 3.5 right now.
My book, yeah, it was.
I got it at 3 this morning, so I don't know. I always feel bad when I give a play out that isn't widely available, and I did not tweet that. So I usually say if I tweet it, then you should have seen it, but I didn't tweet that yet. So you know what? I'll take the extra half point.
All right, that's very big of you.
I'm not gonna. I can't stand people who do that, who post plays in forums and stuff, and post opening lines on Friday.
All right, so you're still with it at -3.5.
Absolutely.
All right, talk us through it.
Talk us through it. First off, I just want to ride this Indianapolis train as far as it's going to go. Andrew Luck is just clicking on all cylinders. The defense is playing significantly better. And it's to the point that I'm not scared of facing Pittsburgh on the road anymore. Really, Houston should have beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh on Monday. If it weren't for that 2-minute and 46-second crazy stretch, they would have. Now, Pittsburgh has had a very, very odd season. They had that one game against Carolina where they went off.
But maybe that's not that good anymore, because we've seen Carolina as not the team we thought they were at that time, maybe.
They squeaked through Jacksonville 17-9. They lost to Tampa Bay. Now, I understand that this is one of those things where it almost looks like a trap to bet Indianapolis here. But if it is, I'm voluntarily stepping right into it because I think this is going to be at least a touchdown victory.
I agree. Steelers, not a good defensive team despite their reputation over the years, 26th in the league at this point, and Colts top 10 unit on both sides of the ball. If the defense can even play average, just not let Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell run wild, then they're going to win by a large margin because Andrew Luck and that offense is going to have their way with the Steelers defense. And then even if the Steelers do score some points,
they'll score some.
Yeah,
Antonio Brown's not going to get shut out for a game.
But even if it's a high-scoring game, I'll back Andrew Luck in a shootout any day.
Pittsburgh beat Cleveland by 3 at home after being crushed in the first half, and they had to come back. That was before Cleveland had kind of established that they were okay.
And then the second go-around, they got crushed by Cleveland.
They got crushed by Cleveland second go-around.
Yeah.
Lost to Baltimore 26-6. Beat Carolina, which is now not that impressive because we were just talking about Carolina. Lost to Tampa Bay, who in between beating Pittsburgh got demolished by Atlanta and then demolished by Baltimore. This Pittsburgh team just isn't good, and as long as there's still value in understanding that, because right now they look like they're okay because they're 4-3 and after the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
And right now there's still value in if you can understand that this team's not good. So I'm taking Indianapolis.
Yep, I call frauds on the Steelers.
Yep.
All right, so your two full plays for Week 8: Seattle -5, Indianapolis -3.5. And then to finish up, we're going to go with your second leg of your open 3-team teaser. You like Miami getting +4. Remember, getting 10 points extra at Jacksonville. Dan, Jacksonville bad, but they won last week.
Jacksonville won last week, and they actually played a pretty decent game. They won despite their quarterback not having a great game, which is always something you like to see. I don't think they're going to win 2 in a row. I don't know if the organization wants to win 2 in a row. Every win is lower down the draft board they get, but that's not why I'm making the play. Their offensive line is terrible. Dolphins have a guy named Cameron Wake who's
pretty good.
He's pretty good. In general, the Dolphins' defensive line is very good. It is in Jacksonville, but Jacksonville really doesn't have any home field advantage here. I don't see Jacksonville having their way with the Dolphins. Even if they are able to eke out a win, I'm teasing this down to +4, so a 3-point Jacksonville win doesn't even lose it for me. I just can't see Jacksonville routing the Dolphins here. I don't even see them winning the game, but if they do, it's not going to be by much.
I agree. I like Miami to win this one outright, so getting +4, that's just an extra safe cushion in my opinion, for the reason you mentioned. Tannehill's I'll add Tannehill has looked good recently, plus Cameron Wake and that really strong Miami pass rush is just going to go wild on that terrible Jacksonville offensive line.
Is Tannehill going to be the guy who looks so good until I put money on him and then he throws 3 interceptions in Jacksonville?
Yep. Tannehill is that guy. All right, so Miami +4, second leg of 3-team teaser. That concludes our plays for Week 8, and thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time.
See you next week.